Hello everyone, I'm Jen and I make useful English Lit study videos on Shakespeare, poetry, fiction, literary ideas and more to help you become a literary expert. So if you're new to my channel and this sounds exactly like what you need, then make sure you hit that subscribe button below. So following my previous video on rethinking Macbeth through art, I decided to do another one on Othello because there was so much positive feedback from it. So Othello, of course, is another Shakespearean play that has inspired a profusion of artistic representations, spanning paintings and sculptures. And in some ways, it would have been more challenging to portray Othello in a visual medium, especially in past societies when the idea of presenting a black man or a black man alongside a white woman created a stark visual contrast that would have raised more than a few eyebrows amongst the public. Now that said, many artists drew on Shakespeare and specifically on his Moorish play Othello for subject matter inspiration. And the result of this has been a wonderful flourishing of different paintings and sculptures about the play throughout history. While there's no shortage of portrait paintings of Othello himself, with those of Ira Eldridge, who is the first black actor to ever play Othello on stage, perhaps being the most famous, in this video I want us to focus on those that feature both Othello and Desdemona in the same canvas, because I think there's something particularly affecting and striking about the artist's juxtaposition of the light and dark, black and white dynamics that the iconic and often challenging combination of the Moorish husband and his Phoenician wife provides. At the end of this video, I will also share a wild card painting, which is a modern reimagination of Othello that invites us to reframe and recontextualize our understanding of this tragic hero in a world where cultural norms differ significantly from those in Shakespeare's Renaissance society. So with that, let's dive straight into the analysis. Now, one of the most famous paintings on a Shakespearean subject is Ophelia by John Everett Millais, who was a 19th century painter best known for bringing the pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood movement into prominence. Now, what's not as well known about him is that he had also created a painting on Othello and Desdemona, which looked rather more coarse and even cartoonish compared to his impression of Ophelia from Hamlet drowning in a pool of flowers. And that's because his Othello and Desdemona painting was actually created slightly after his pre-Raphaelite phase. So in the canvas here, Desdemona is portrayed as a clinging wife desperate for her husband's understanding and attention, as you'll see here, while an enraged, frustrated Othello seems to be looking askance at his wife with a mix of anger and incredulity. So this most likely captures the couple in Act 3, Scene 4, at the point when Othello confronts Desdemona about the handkerchief he's gifted her. The vivid coral hue that covers Othello clearly expresses his rage, but juxtaposed against Desdemona's pale complexion and cream-colored garments, the starkness in color only seems to highlight the emotional disconnect and misunderstanding between this married couple. The dark emerald background perhaps symbolizes that green-eyed monster that Iago alludes to in the previous scene, which is very much the sentiment that consumes Othello in this moment as portrayed by Millais. I almost feel as if the red of the strawberry embroidery of the fateful handkerchief has rubbed off a bit on Millais' choice of hue for the Moor's depiction, who is so strangely awash in vivid redness, which of course we know symbolizes the character's anger, but also his passion. The emotional intensity in Millais' impression then makes for an interesting counterpoint to his contemporary William Powell Frith's take on the Moor and his wife, which is conveyed through much more subdued, refined, and conventional brushwork. In their own time, Frith was a classically trained genre painter who prized precision and verisimilitude, and he had disapproved of Millais' dreamy, garish pre-Raphaelite style. And indeed, if we compare their respective Othello and Desdemona paintings, we'll see how differently the two artists approached their craft. Now, contrary to Desdemona's pleading disposition in Millais' canvas, as she looks upwards at Othello's face with those poignant eyes, it is Othello who looks longingly at his wife in Frith's painting, as Desdemona looks downwards and away with what appears to be a dismissive, evasive attitude. So perhaps this captures the moment when Desdemona was throwing a brief fit over her husband's refusal to reinstate Cassio at her request, when Othello reassures his irate wife that, "I will deny thee nothing, whereon I do beseech thee, grant me this, to leave me but a little to myself." And Desdemona agrees in this teasing huff, "Shall I deny you? No, farewell, my lord." While the tone in Shakespeare's characterization of Desdemona seems to convey more of a light-hearted annoyance, Frith's artistic impression gives the wife a look of haughty apathy, which, if applied to our interpretation of the couple's dynamics, raises a question of whether Desdemona's pride, which may be a trait cultivated from her aristocratic upbringing, is something she lets show in her daily exchanges with Othello, which in turn could stoke the sense of latent insecurity that eventually snowballs into Othello's murderous hatred towards his wife. Now, the start of Act 5, Scene 1, when Othello is about to kill his wife in her sleep, is probably one of the most arresting and harrowing moments in all of Shakespeare's works. For the audience, the dramatic irony and palpable sense of waste felt towards both the Moor and Desdemona becomes too much to bear, which is of course what evokes the pathos necessary for emotional impact. Interestingly, two of the most iconic paintings of the scene don't seem to convey so much a sense of wistful pity as they do feelings of fear and suspense. By the way, guys, if you find this video helpful so far, I'd massively appreciate it if you could hit the thumbs up button below and subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my top grade lit study content going forward. I'd also encourage you to check out my membership program by clicking the join button below if you want exclusive access to members only study content and make special video requests. I'll see you there. The first one is by the French painter Alexandre-Marie Colin, who was a protege of the early Romantic Girodet known for incorporating eroticism into his lifelike human portrayals, showing Othello in frightened shock as he looks sideways at his dying wife, who is presented in graphic rawness, bare-chested with her neck and arms as she hangs from the edge of the bed and hangs on to, literally, her last breath. The stark contrast between Othello's elaborate robes and Desdemona's minimal covering, her nightdress almost seems to merge with the bed linen, reinforces the wife's lack of protection and defenselessness in her stripped-down state. But what's ironic is that even with layers of exquisite garment on him, Othello cannot cover, as it were, the ghastly error and ineradicability of what he's done to his innocent, misunderstood wife. By casting Othello in the dark vis-a-vis Desdemona in the light, Colin first echoes Othello's poignant imperative of put out the light and then put out the light right before he goes for the kill. But the artist's use of shadowing also communicates a clear view of the moral dynamics in the situation, specifically of Othello having fallen to moral disgrace and Desdemona maintaining the righteous upper hand and moral purity despite her tragic outcome. The second one that I want us to look at is by the Spanish painter Antonio Munoz Degrain, who began in the eclectic, which means academic art style, but later on in his career moved to embrace Impressionism. Degrain portrayed the same scene in an early academic style painting dated 1880. What stands out to me about Degrain's representation is that we don't see Othello or Desdemona's eyes, whereas in Colin's painting, Othello is marked by his ferocious eyes. And despite Desdemona's dying state, she's still able to meet her husband's eyes with her own despairing ones in Colin's canvas. So Degrain's decision to omit the eyes in his canvas is a curious one, as his Othello is shown from the profile, looking towards what could either be a sleeping wife or a struggling wife who has already by that point been muffled to death by her husband. So while it's unclear what point in the scene Degrain wants to capture, if the latter were intended as the moment here, then perhaps the artist's omission of any eye contact between the couple suggests the deep shame and guilt Othello must have felt over his act, notwithstanding his pomp and bombast at the start of the scene as portrayed by Shakespeare. Like Colin, however, Degrain adopts a similar value distribution, with lightness cast on Desdemona's side of the canvas and darkness consuming Othello's part on the left, thereby signaling a strong moral association of the woman's purity and the man's fallenness. What's really interesting, though, is the depth created by the black shadow that you'll see behind Desdemona's body, which perhaps symbolizes her transition from life to death at this point, adding to the wistfulness of this domestic tragedy a touch of morbid drama and mystique in Degrain's representation. Now, finally, I wanted to share a modern alternative representation of Othello in art, which is William H. Johnson's Paul Robeson's Relations, dated around 1945. Paul Robeson was the first African-American actor since 1860 to have played Othello in a major theatrical production on Broadway in 1943. And William H. Johnson was a South Carolina-born African-American folk artist. I'm especially drawn to the collage-esque composition of Jonson's painting because I see that the painter empowers the actor by placing in the center Robeson's landmark representation as a black man playing a Shakespearean tragic hero, while simultaneously making his mark beyond the realm of theatre and into international politics by facilitating diplomatic relations among countries through his artistic and theatrical achievements. At the same time, Jonson shows Robeson's more tender, human side in the bottom right corner, depicting the actor in a basketball jersey while tucking his wife or perhaps his daughter into bed. So it's just a wonderful tapestry which conveys the dynamism of one's identity. The notion that a black man isn't just limited to or defined by his racial status, but a complex amalgamation of his many human facets, actions, and achievements in the world. And by extension, this invites us to consider that Othello isn't just this Moorish general, green-eyed monster or wife killer, but a character similarly marked by and made fascinating by his various permutations of identity, as a man who can be both noble and base, a husband at once loving and brutal, a mercenary who is in turn accepted for his military prowess, and marginalized for his outsider identity, among many, many other possible identities that Othello embodies. And there you have it, guys. I hope this has given you a fresh angle to engage with the play and that I've inspired you to look into the art that's been created on Othello and Shakespeare. There's much more out there by way of paintings and sculptures about the play, as well as other Shakespearean works, and I've included some links below to a couple of other paintings and resources that I think would be useful for you. So go check them out in the description box below. And of course, if you are studying Othello and want some top grade ideas, don't forget to check out my extensive Othello playlist. And if you're interested in looking at the intersections between art and Shakespeare, you can watch my video on Rethinking Macbeth through art and paintings, everything in the description box. So of course, if you found this video helpful, hit that thumbs up button below so that YouTube will help spread it to more passionate lit learners like yourself all around the world, and that you can encourage me to keep making these useful study videos for you. Please subscribe if you haven't already and switch on that bell notification so you don't miss out on my future weekly videos. So you can also hit that join button below to be part of my membership program if you want exclusive video requests and essay review perks. And I, as always, will see you guys in the next one. Bye!